David Sinclair. David is a professor in the Department of Genetics and the co-director of the Paul F. Glenn Centre for Biology of Aging at Harvard Medical School. He is also a professor at the School of Medicine at the University of New South Wales, the co-founder of several biotechnology companies and co-founder and co-chief editor of the scientific journal Aging. Professor Sinclair has been featured in Time magazine's list of 100 most influential people in the world, in particular because of his work on anti-aging. He is currently working with NASA to see if astronauts can be protected from the impact of cosmic radiation when they travel in space.
So the ideal world is that people can live into their 90s and beyond, but the week before they die, they can be playing tennis and hanging out with their great-grandkids and having a great life, being productive. But we also have evidence that we'll be able to push the maximum human lifespan out as well. And you've probably heard that the first person to live to 150 is already born. I think the Prime Minister here quoted me on that. I still truly believe that. And the technology is going incredibly quickly. So just to drive home a point that there's a lot of confusion. When I give talks in the media, on the radio, often there's a caller that says, well, I don't want to live longer. I'm already frail. I'm 85. Don't make me live longer. I don't want to live. And that caller is missing the point. What we're talking about is technologies that will keep people younger for longer, not older for longer. The molecule that is all the rage in my lab is this one. This is called NMN. A version of this is in clinical trials over at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Been feeding this to humans for about 18 months now. All has gone well so far. And this is the molecule, we had a science paper a few years ago showing that this actual molecule, at least in mice, protects those mice from DNA damage and restores the DNA repair capacity of an old mouse to a young one again. And that's an important theme. Often we think that aging is a one-way street, and what we've learned is that there are aspects of aging that are remarkably reversible. The mice that we published on were treated just for a week, and that was enough to reset that part of the program. I don't know if you can see black mice on a black background, but there's a mouse on the top left and a mouse on the bottom right. The one on the bottom right has stopped running. So either it's lost its energy or it's just a lot more intelligent. We're not sure. But we assume that it's because it's tired. It certainly has more lactic acid in its bloodstream. And what we found, and we published, this is now a paper from exactly a year ago, was that this same molecule can intervene in the loss of endothelial function of the capillaries in your body. And actually, a very poorly studied aspect of biology is the loss of capillaries and blood flow as we get older. And that underlies a lot of chronic disease, actually. But the reason that we haven't done much about it is we thought that that was also a one-way street. Even exercise, after a while, doesn't affect the body's ability to grow new blood vessels. So we thought that was just a natural part of aging. We tend to accept what we cannot treat. But these mice, they grew new blood vessels in their muscle, they grew blood vessels, we think, in their brain, and there was no evidence of any downside yet. We've tested cancer, it didn't seem to have any negative effect yet. But this is pretty interesting. A lot of sports associations have reached out. What we show with these mice that run further, that's true aging reversal. Those mice were 20 months old, that's like a 75-year-old, and they can now run like a 20-year-old. So some organs are very easy to reverse. Muscle, liver, even brain, we find that we can rapidly reverse aging within a week.
Wow.
Doesn't mean you'll look younger necessarily. So how does NMN work? There's a lot of stuff in the literature if you want to read about it. Basically, we found a set of enzymes. When I worked down the hall here at MIT 20 years ago, in the Garenti lab, we discovered that there are a set of enzymes that control gene expression and cell defenses. We call these the sirtuins, and we have 7 of those genes in our body. And those enzymes that control genome stability and the epigenome need NAD. NAD, you'll remember from biology, hopefully, is a molecule that's required for many enzymatic reactions. Without it, we're dead in about 30 seconds. This molecule goes up and down during the day. When you wake up, you get a boost. When you want to go to sleep, you go down again. NMN is the immediate precursor that our bodies use to make NAD. So when we're giving these mice NMN and the humans that are in clinical trials, their NAD levels go back up. And what I haven't told you is by the time you're my age, which is 50, we have about half we 50-year-olds have about half the levels of NAD that we had when we were 20. So what we're hoping to do is just by raising NAD levels, we can get the body to fight against disease and debilitation or deterioration a lot better. And it seems to be working, at least in mice so far. And the older you are, the better it seems to work. This is called NMN, and its full name is a mouthful. It's nicotinamide mononucleotide, but essentially it's the immediate precursor molecule to NAD in the body. So we make it all the time, but just not a lot of it, and less as we get older. You can boost the levels of NAD up by exercising and dieting, but here is a way to do it artificially. So I'm going to show you a bit of data. We've done a lot of experiments, and the field has shown that NMN is very effective at mimicking caloric restriction. We now know it even makes mice live longer, just by putting it in their food or in their water. And it's a very safe molecule because it's naturally occurring. This is a company that was spun out of MIT. It's called Inside Tracker. And for someone can come to your house, take your blood, or you can go to, say, a phlebotomist. And then what happens is they track your blood over 35 markers. It's cheaper than having it done by a doctor. And I've actually been tracking myself for the last 6 years. And I can see what goes up, what goes down, what do I do that makes me better, what do I do that makes it worse. And they also use AI to give you recommendations of food and lifestyle. And they can also estimate your biological age based on true correlates of longevity, inflammation, blood glucose, testosterone. These things correlate with lifespan. And so I was looking at my biological age, and it was going up and up and up. I was actually older than my age. I hit 57. And I thought, if I die young, this is not going to be a good look for the field. So in 2014, I took my health into my own hands, and I went on two of the molecules that I've told you about today. I started taking metformin, which I could get in Thailand, on my way to Australia. I was borderline diabetic, so if you can be prescribed this drug. And I also went on NMN. So I'm going to show you what these independent tests showed my age to be over a period of 3 months. See the graph on the bottom? The red line is my age going up. And then when I started taking these molecules, you can see that I plummeted. I don't know if you can see the ages, but that top peak is 57 point something. The bottom that I landed at 3 months later, 31.4. And not only did that tell me that I was doing well, my body told me I was doing well. I felt younger. People said I looked younger. I certainly had more energy. And so I think that this graph is hopefully the first of many similar graphs across the globe where people can potentially alter not just how they feel, but how long they live. And I may have given myself another 15 years of life here. By the way, my father, who's 70, almost 78, is also taking these medicines. Voluntarily, I'm not forcing anybody. And he just climbed the highest mountain in Tasmania. And my brother, who's 35 years younger, could barely keep up. So it's so far so good. One of the first molecules infamous molecules that we are known for is resveratrol from red wine. That molecule, discovered it in my 30s, or at least linked it to aging. What we showed was that if you give it to a fat mouse, they're as healthy as a thin mouse. They live just as long, they get heart disease and all of the other bad stuff. Then what we did was interesting. We gave it to the mice either every day in their food or let them skip a meal every day so that they were fed every other day. And that combination of resveratrol plus every other day feeding, we had the longest lifespan we'd ever seen, and it was additive. Same with exercise. If we give our latest molecule called NMN to a mouse and we exercise it, it'll run even further than it could with either of those alone.
Are you seeing a benefit in addition? So is the idea to compound all those things together?
Exactly, right. So you asked about myself. So I eat healthy. I try to skip meals. I also take supplements. And in fact, most of my colleagues are in the field of aging, or anti-aging as people call it. So I take NMN every morning.
What is NMN?
Good question. So let me take a quick step back.
Sure.
So about 20 years ago, Lenny Guarente and a team of us at MIT discovered a set of genes that controls aging in yeast cells, just brewer's yeast, what you find in beer and bread. And those genes are called sirtuins, and there are 7 of them in our bodies, 5 in yeast. And what they do is they protect all organisms on the planet, plants, bacteria, humans, from deterioration and disease. They're like the Pentagon. They sense when we're hungry, sense when we're exercising, and they send out the troops to defend us. So we think that these genes are responsible for the effects of dieting and exercise, which is great. What that means is we can now mimic that with molecules. So NMN is one of those molecules, so is resveratrol. You can think of resveratrol as the accelerator pedal for the sirtuin genes, and the NMN is the fuel. And without fuel, resveratrol won't work, so NMN is the gas in the car.
I've heard of resveratrol, but is NMN a new molecule? Is this commercially available?
Some people have started selling it on the internet. So the sirtuins, okay, get this. So sirtuins need NAD to work. Without them, they don't work. In fact, if you don't have NAD in your body, you'd be dead in about 30 seconds. It's a really important molecule. But as we get older, we lose NAD. So by the time you're 50, like I almost am, you have about half the levels of what you had when you were 20. So that's not good. And these sirtuins, they don't protect the body without high levels of NAD. So what NMN does, they boost the body's levels of NAD back up to youthful levels again. And if we give them to mice, these molecules to mice or even to worms or yeast, they live longer and they're super healthy.
Now, what level, like how many milligrams are you taking of these things?
NMN is something I get from myself. I'm not selling anything. So I take a gram of NMN in the morning. Based on clinical trials, it's been shown that will raise NAD.
With or without food?
I take a little bit of yogurt that I make myself at home just to
settle
me. I've been doing this for a while, and I only start doing stuff when I see it work in animals first. So take the yogurt, mix in some resveratrol. Resveratrol is great, but it's really insoluble. It's like brick dust. So in the yogurt, it'll dissolve. Take another half a gram of resveratrol.
And how much? Half a gram?
Yeah. It's a powder. I have a few kilos left over from clinical trials in my basement. So that's going to last me a few decades. And then I also take at night some metformin, which is probably the most radical thing that I take, which is a prescribable drug for diabetes.
Metformin?
Met.
M?
M-E-T.
And prescribable drug. But you don't have diabetes.
I do not.
But you take it for
preventing cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and aging.
And how much do you take of that?
I take a gram of that as well, which is about a low dose. Some diabetics take 2 grams, so it's not crazy amounts.
Is there any side effects?
Well, the good news is that it's extremely rare that you get sick from any of these molecules. In millions of patients around the world, nobody's getting sick. The worst you'll have, as far as I can tell, is a stomach upset.